all over. Yeah, I'm sure, bro. I can't sit with all the stuff.
Okay, guys, welcome to yet another episode of the BMX show. So today we've got a very special guest.
Drum roll.
A guest. I had to literally make sure that she gets here. I've been trying, and eventually she just decided to come. So, welcome, Blanche.
Thank you, B.
It's good to have you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So you are now, by association, a part of this family. So we're very pleased to have you.
Thank you so much, B.
So feel at home. So yeah, I'm going to just open the floor now because I'm sure everyone is eager.
We are anxious.
So guys, I've actually prepared this topic for today because I felt like with all the recent events that we've actually seen, this is quite the perfect time to actually tackle this topic and actually talk about it, with an open mind. Are substances the root cause of illicit behavior?
And which substances are you referring to?
So by substances, I of course mean alcohol, drugs, you name them. So are they the root cause of illicit behavior? And while you are still meditating on that, right, I'm going to just maybe brief you through a very interesting story that I just came across the other day. So Demi Lovato, whom I'm very deeply fond of, recently went to the Joe Rogan show, right? While at it, she had some interesting revelation to make. So I just want to quote her, and then this topic is going to become more clearer.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm going to read. So Demi says, I often say, and this is hard for people to hear sometimes, but I think that drugs save my life at times. Because had I not had something to meditate with, I wouldn't be here. I would have taken my life by now. I have dealt with suicidal ideation since I was 7 years old, and that's just something that's always been a part of my journey. I don't know why. So that's the first step of it, right? There's a second part, and then it's going to tie everything very well.
Okay.
So here I come. There was a period of time where I thought to myself, I'm so miserable. I'm still sober. And I'm now sober again. And still so unhappy. What am I doing?
Was that it?
That's it.
Okay.
So remember what I said to you. I said, are substances the root cause of illicit behavior? Now, take a Demi Lovato, whom at 7 years old, she hasn't contacted any substance. But she has suicidal ideations. Right? By the time she became 12, which was her first encounter with substance, the problems already existed, right? But oftentimes, and obviously, there's a plethora of people where I come from who've actually fell victim to substance abuse. And the common ending of the story is it's because of substance abuse. So I want us
to unravel.
Exactly. Is it really substance abuse that's the problem here? Because it seems like it's the end of the story and not the beginning of it. Where does this thing start? Where does it originate? What do you think?
That's an interesting one, but I actually want to go back a little bit before answering your question there.
I feel like I've been talking for so long.
Yeah, and I actually want to touch base on that. You know how Brian starts his thing? He calls me. It's like, Miguel, I have this interesting conversation. It always is the same. Just like now he said, there's this interesting thoughts, interesting conversation. I'm like, This guy always starts with the same things, and I'm like, I'm sure one of the days I'm gonna catch him out where it's not actually interesting. But again, he actually blew my mind because I was like, okay, wait, this is down another rabbit hole that we always find ourselves dwelling into, and it's a really interesting and a deep conversation. I actually found it very interesting because obviously we would have had personal experiences and seeing what people are actually going through from the different substances. So not only alcohol, and that's a very important one that we why I actually asked you which substances are you referring to, because okay, alcohol would obviously be one of the most common ones and the most affordable, but there's actually quite a few others that we know of. And I kind of agree, because I see you answered your question already. You asked the question and you answered it with Demi Lovato's statement. So you actually didn't give us time to ponder on it. But I guess, it's our time to actually maybe bring our own perspectives to the matter.
For sure.
I also don't want to dwell too much because it feels like I'm talking too much now. But when I thought about the topic, right, and what Demi Lovato said, I was like, there's always an underlying cause that we've spoken about in some of our previous sessions. And those issues that maybe have not been dealt with, that has now resulted in people maybe seeking some type of experience or pleasure that they didn't get at the time of maybe growing up, or whatever time in their lives that they actually experience maybe some form of hardship. And when I actually researched on some of the drugs or substances, let me put it that way, that people are actually making use of, and I was like, okay, what are the benefits, so to speak? And I'm using benefits very loosely, I know. But they were speaking about some type of psychoactive feeling that goes into the brain, and it actually elevates your certain chemicals in the body, serotonin and all those type of things. So
does that cause you to
feel a certain way?
Okay.
Better than maybe that you felt prior to you making use of the substances. So the question then comes about, why would you need to get to that point? Because these are chemicals that can be induced naturally.
Right. So while I agree with you on that front, but let's understand this, right? You've done something, right?
Yeah.
Or you've conducted some illicit behavior. Let's put it that way. And now, because often it takes away accountability and responsibility, because ultimately we're going to pin it to
the substance abuse.
The substance.
Yeah.
Oh, I did this because I was
But there's actually a root cause.
Right? But there's actually a root cause.
Yeah.
So because now we always pin it to the drug, right? Blame it on the alcohol, Jamie Foxx.
The booze.
Right? Because we always blame it on the alcohol.
Yeah.
Then accountability shifts. It's almost like a deflection tactic, right? So attention shifts to
the substance.
Yeah. Let's boycott alcohol. But actually, we could all sit here and have a drink, right? But we're gonna react in different ways.
Absolutely.
You go home, you become a nightmare. I go home, I become a joy. Right? So how can this one substance possibly have two different outcomes when consumed the exact same way? So if the problem was indeed the substance, then why isn't she acting the same way, or why aren't we acting the same way?
That's a good point.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Blanche, what do you think? I'm sure people are dying to hear your voice.
Well, if you're looking at it from that perspective, I definitely also think there's always a root cause to it, because exactly to what you're saying, Brian, the way you will react, I would have to ask the question, okay, so what is Brian going through? If Brian's life is calm and cool and collected and there's no issues, right? And Brian has a wine or a beer and he's cool, then there's no issues. Now, Blanche, on the other hand, may be a depressive. I may be having issues at home. And now I'm going to the alcohol and having that tequila or having that, whatever it is that I'm drinking. Jameson, right? And I'm drinking it just to drown that pain and that sorrow. And what happens? Like you're saying, you end up becoming this absolute nightmare because everything that you're feeling when you maybe react in that specific way to alcohol, it's maybe to drown, or you're hiding behind a stronghold, or you're hiding behind pain or suffering, whatever it is that you're going through. If your life is not in a healthy state. So if you're healthy and I'm unhealthy, there may be definitely a different reaction to alcohol. So I do agree with that.
X-Men.
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Obviously, we're all going to be grounded in truth. So this is not by any means an advertorial for the alcohol industry and the drug industry. We all know, like in some cases, obviously, it has actually caused,
Havoc.
Yes, havoc, if you put it that way. But let's not really like shift accountability and just throw everything to substance and alcohol.
Yeah.
When actually we are the consumers.
Look, I fully agree with you, right? But I think there's another element to it as well. Because you
What's
see,
that element?
the
Lay
point
it down.
I was raising earlier about the effects on the system. So although they may be different from person to person, there's commonalities because ultimately we are we have our individual personas and characteristics that make us who we are, right? So sometimes you might find naturally I'm reserved, whereas X-Men might be, as we all know him, to be out of the box, just as an example.
That sounds bad.
I know it does.
That really sounds bad.
I withdraw my statement, Chair. I withdraw. No, but like a person that's, more bubbly and stuff. So it may just enhance their type of persona. Whereas a person like me that's maybe more reserved, it may actually make me even more reserved. And I would kind of feel a bit more like I'm drowning or
even
more
aggressive.
It could be as well. So it does tie back to your point about what you're saying, that it's not necessarily the substance, right?
Yeah.
But then again, there's certain functions in the brain that gets triggered by these substances.
Absolutely.
And those the triggers could result in
Yes.
certain things like aggressive behavior as one of them. So it is something that's been scientifically proven. So it's not to say that it's the substance that enhances.
So wait. So maybe like walk me through this so that I can actually understand you better. So you're saying that like you could be a completely different person, right? Like you could be calm, you could be nice, and upon consuming substance, you could literally become something else.
Well,
Could become an aggressive person.
ultimately, it's still you. But I
Yes,
think
but
it's a trigger to a different part of you.
A
It's
different part,
probably, it could be...
a part unbeknownst to you.
It's
That's what
probably
you're saying.
another part that wants to come out,
Uh-huh.
but not when they're sober. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Because you
it's
lose your inhibitions when
yes.
you're on drugs, when you're on alcohol.
Exactly.
It's like almost it reminds me of what do you call that when you call yourself? What does Beyonce call herself? She's got that.
Sasha Fierce.
Yeah, but
the alter ego.
your alter ego. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. It's almost like your alter ego comes out.
I'm so surprised you're the first one to jump at this. I'm like, what do you know about Beyonce?
Yeah, exactly. It's like your alter ego coming out. It's that person that's normally maybe like you're saying reserved, suppressed, and maybe now when you're drinking alcohol, you become this. I know a lot of people like that. They become very outspoken and outgoing, but I also feel that when it comes to substance, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, I do believe that they all play, or at least they all trigger a different behavior. And if you look at, there's a range of drugs. There's tons of, and I'm speaking specifically about that substance. That all, let me rather say it like this, that they all trigger in a different way.
100%, yes.
They all
Yeah.
trigger, all the substance will trigger in a different
Different,
way. You
exactly.
react in a different way. If you take LSD, you act in a different way. When you're smoking marijuana, you'll maybe become a bit more
Different,
reserved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But yeah,
okay, so like basically what I'm hearing here is that this whole thing is rapacious, right? And it takes advantage of your weakness because maybe it's something that you want to express, as you would have said earlier
Yeah.
on, that it might be something that you want to express, you want to let out,
Yeah, but you can't.
but you can't.
Yeah, and now you have, as you've mentioned, you don't want to take accountability when you're sober, so now you have the substance,
Oh,
and now
play
you're
the
saying
blame
like it's the substance.
game.
I see.
It's the substance, yeah.
And a lot of people, I think you're right, Xavier, because a lot of people will say that. I mean, I've said it with my own mouth on a personal front, but not particularly to me, but to a situation or a personal situation in my own life where the person was using.
Yeah.
And knowing the person when the person is not using, and knowing the person when they're used, I would say it's not, I don't want to say it's not their fault, but I always looked at the person like, I know that's not you. I know that's not you. So it's because of that substance that causes you to become aggressive, that causes you to become this horrible human, because I know you without it.
Yeah.
It makes them aggressive, and that's why I say certain drugs do certain things and cause specific behaviors as a result of taking that. And I think maybe it's just about the person that I am, that you don't want to believe that that's the person. So it's like it can't be. It cannot be. It has to be that. That's why we blame the substance.
So you, by denying this newfound behavior, right, that you most probably not used to, but now you are kind of like denying it, that that's not you, but it's happening, right? But it's not you because I've seen you better, right? Doesn't that take away accountability, because you are denying
I don't think so, B. And the reason I say that it doesn't take away accountability, because the person is still responsible for the behavior.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
If you are going to choose to abuse any substance, whether it's alcohol, drugs, whatever the case may be, there's always consequences to your actions and your behavior, right? And that's something that you will have to face.
Yeah.
Whether you're inflicting pain on your family, whether you are breaking up your home, whether you are going and causing havoc and ending up in jail, whether you're going to end up murdering someone as a result, whatever the case may be, there's always consequences to your action. And that's where the accountability lies. But I think, just to answer that, where you're talking about whether it changes the person's behavior and who they are, yes, it does. But the accountability still lies with the person. Why? Because the person chose. You had a choice. You had a choice.
Yes.
You could have either taken that drugs or you didn't, but you chose to do it. And that's where you have to be held accountable. So that will never, ever drop. That will never leave. You will always have to be held accountable for your actions and what you've done and the consequences.
That's
of
true.
Irrespective of whether
Irrespective.
you are. Well, unless. Well, let me not get to that.
Yeah. Now I feel like I'm talking too much.
Not at all,
that's
please.
what we want.
Actually,
Exactly.
You know what? Like, I haven't heard
Please tell
so
us what,
much from
Brian.
X. Like, literally.
Are you saying I'm inspiring him?
No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, just on today's session, it's like I'm dying to hear from him now, because like Blanche was just so spot on.
Yeah.
And I could feel that X is also like in sync, and he's kind of like dying to like
Come on, X.
I think he's still on the Beyonce thing, so I think let's give him time.
Yeah.
No, that was,
No.
it's absolute
So-
travesty. It caught me off guard.
So just
We'll
speaking
address
on
it offline though.
Yeah.
You're just not off the hook yet. You still have to explain to the world why you know such things about Beyonce. Go on.
Forgive me. So anyway, I'll speak basically on from experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I drank. I've
What did you drink?
experimented.
Or your own experience.
Yeah, my own experience.
Okay.
I've experimented with drugs. Not drugs, a drug.
Okay.
And I would say, let's say ecstasy. Right. At the time, it was cool. But then when it pulls out of your system, you feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Your system.
Condemnation.
Yeah. So basically, and I just decided, and I just sat one day and I thought to myself, do I really want to feel this way, all the time?
Were you always aware the whole time?
I was aware. Like basically, someone just mentioned now, the consequences, and while having like drinking or consuming the drugs, I always thought to myself, the consequences, I could end up far. You know, it could get me in another situation. And I just decided, look, no more. And that's, and I left it.
And I think that's touching
And-
base on. Sorry. No, you could continue.
No, and even like in terms of drinking alcohol, you know, you've mentioned that I'm always out there, but drinking alcohol made me more reserved. So you'll find me in a nightclub drinking alcohol, and when I'm drunk, you'll find me in the corner just sitting, you know, not sleeping,
Yeah.
but
Chilled.
chilled. Like talking and walking would be an effort for me. So I don't.
I'd still like to see
you
that.
get what I'm saying? Like, so that's my experience.
Yeah,
And I haven't. I've stopped drinking for about 16, 17 years.
Wow.
Yo,
I think
quite a
I
lot.
think that's
Drugs-
another topic
drugs
we
is-
need to put on the
Drugs
on
as
ice.
well, because in my teens or in my late teens, I experimented with it. And as soon as I started, or before I started working, you know, I left it. Because I said to myself, this is not for me. You know, I always thought about what it would do,
Consequences.
what it would do to my parents or to my family,
Yeah.
as well as how would people see me, you know.
Yeah.
I think also like as humans we are prone to experimental behavior. Sometimes like you like glimpse something and like you just want to try it out, maybe because it looks cool, or like I just want to get over the feeling of not knowing what it actually feels like. So like we sometimes stay in those experiments and not actually leave them and escape them, like
Exactly,
you
you don't know when to leave it
Yes, and
behind you.
you-
People don't know when to leave it
But
behind
also,
them.
I think it also depends on what it is.
but also you
Yeah.
don't need to, and there's no way you need to actually partake in order for you to know about
To experiment.
to
Absolutely.
experiment,
It's
basically,
choice.
especially if it's gonna lead to illicit behavior.
Absolutely.
So we also need to be clear on, or you know, there's certain drugs where you don't experiment with.
you just don't.
You don't. You
That's
don't
what I was
touch
going to
that
say. You don't
because
touch that. The
one
risk-
one experiment
the risk
can
is too high.
the risk is too high.
The risk is way too high.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you're looking at your methamphetamines,
Yes.
like we have a problem in this country with TIC, for example,
Yeah.
hitting our children, hitting so many communities. I mean, that is. I remember watching a documentary a couple of years ago around methamphetamine, crystal meth in America. It's like the crystal meth, and I remember watching this documentary, and I was so blown away by the risk of taking it. One hit. It took a couple, young couple. Young couple. I'm talking about they were in matric in America, in matric. And they went out one night, and these two, it was during winter time, it was snowing, and these two decided, no, they're going to go and just try this stuff out. And they literally lost their lives at the end because of the effects of what happened. It's a long story, so I don't want to go into it, but the point is that it just took one moment, one wrong decision for them to actually just destroy their lives. And methamphetamine especially, I mean, we see the risks of it is horrible. And the results of it is horrible, and what it's doing to people is horrible.
So, guys, I know you want to jump in,
You
Miguel,
know.
maybe at this point, for the sake of open-mindedness, right? So I'm going to take a different stance, right? I'm going to introduce a new point, going back to my earlier quote by
Demi
Demi,
Lovato.
where she said, drugs saved my life.
Mhm.
I had suicidal ideations. I could have taken my life by now.
So okay,
So now what is, right? Practically bad for someone is now good for someone else.
True.
Because it saved her life.
Yeah.
So she says. And you can't possibly deny what she's saying because you don't know how she feels, right?
Yeah.
But we also don't know what drug she's talking about. Did she mean pharmaceutical?
Does it?
Yes, it could be.
No, I
you want to
I
ask,
mean,
does it matter?
it doesn't really matter, right?
Well, here's
I
the
think
thing.
it would matter.
It doesn't matter which drug it is, but I mean, if it causes the same effects, right?
No, it doesn't. I don't think like drugs.
The altering
not
of
all-
behavior.
yeah,
That's
not
what
all-
we're talking
not-
about. The
yeah.
altering of behavior. So let's not get to the feeling of the actual drug, because the feeling is not particularly important in this case, because we are talking about the behavior, the effects. You've consumed the drug, whether you're off the roof or you below the roof. If you go and conduct some illicit behavior, right, or you drink and drive, right, that's what we're saying.
So she probably
but
done
the same
it.
bad thing in everyone's view, right, saved her life.
Well, she probably consumed it responsibly, if I can say that, because if
No, she doesn't mean it that way. That like maybe like she means it that like I would have killed myself
if it wasn't for
if
the
it
drugs.
wasn't for drugs. So
If-
because I
if she didn't
did drugs, so
consume it, yeah.
I enjoyed. I was happy. I was able to look at life differently because of drugs. I was
Right.
able to look forward to things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying here, right?
Okay.
That's the saving part.
So, but that then does touch on the feeling,
Yeah.
because
Because it changes your serotonin levels, absolutely.
exactly.
It
Yes.
definitely changes your dopamine levels increase, your serotonin levels increase. It does all of that, and like I said, also which drugs are you talking about? If you're talking about some pharmaceuticals, then that's like antidepressants, of course, happy pills, woohoo! It definitely calms you down.
Yeah.
But if she's talking about, I don't know if it's coke, cat, which drug is she talking about?
Cats,
You know?
I mean, they,
Benelin for flu. I told you about Benelin for flu, man.
Yeah.
That's like
I
a
told you
charm.
what he done to
Yeah.
me. You know?
Yeah, and leaning,
Yeah.
taking
Yeah.
the Benelin for flu and putting it into your bronchopeds,
Yeah.
into your Sprite.
and by the way, that's a very good point, because we are so gullible, right? That like we tend to think that just because like it's in a pharmacy, it's not the same as a drug.
Mm-hmm.
It is a drug.
It is, yeah.
And if you are addicted to it,
Yep.
it's wrong still. Whether you go there, you I mean, like anyone else can go there, but the mere fact that you are dependent on this thing,
Here's the
you now
thing.
cross the borders and you are part of the addiction.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, okay. There's a lot of things that we've touched base on, right? So my mind is racing about. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay.
There's a robot
And I know that's a
approaching.
song. But when I think about what you're saying, right?
Uh-huh.
So to just go back to what I was saying about the feeling. So we're moving away completely from what you're saying about the behavior
Mm-hmm.
that is now chaotic, so to speak. And we're speaking about the feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
That she got, and that's why the drugs saved her life, as she said. So again, it's coming back to what we said initially about the underlying issues.
Yes.
So now what the drugs have done, with whichever drugs it was could be like your hallucinogens.
Yeah,
You know, they take you
That's
to
right.
another place. Kid Cudi spoke about it.
yeah, absolutely.
There's this one guy, actually, I watched a video and he spoke about him being transported and him having an angel by his side.
A
and he spoke to
psychedelic, yeah.
The psychedelics,
Yeah.
yeah. Your
Exactly.
magic mushrooms,
Yeah.
as
all
an
those things, yeah.
example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually wanted to go back to the natural drugs that we find either on trees, in the ground, and all those type of things. So
and
these things
psychedelics.
exist.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in psychedelics.
Yeah. So what then happens is
Blanche.
if consumed,
Stuff.
I mean, like, okay, here's my confusion about it. If it exists, why shouldn't it be consumed to an extent? That's just the question I want to put on the table. I'm not promoting
Why
it.
do I
But it
sense
doesn't
that
mean
this
because
guy
it
is
exists, it
misleading
means it-
us as the nation?
Yeah.
That's why I say I'm not promoting. I'm just, it's just something that, like, you know,
But then my question would be is, okay, let me ask this question then. Okay, let me try and clarify.
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand what you're asking. So are you saying that because it's there, why can't it be consumed? Is that what you're kind of asking?
I'm-
Just want
I'm-
to clarify?
I'm kind of asking that because why I'm also asking that is in our system, we have certain levels of alcohol
Mm-hmm.
naturally.
Yes.
And also those chemicals we spoke about, the dopamine and serotonin. So it just enhances those things.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the substance itself allows people to feel a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if that is a good feeling, why shouldn't they consume it? I know this is completely
But you know the
press.
answer to that, right? Because the thing is, it's great for the time.
yeah.
But when that
When it kicks
substance
out.
kicks out of your
Yeah.
system, what's happening? It's going to bring you down and you're going to crash. And what happens? That's where the depression starts. That's where your own condemnation starts,
Yeah.
about asking yourself these questions. Because I think when you're in a state of using, right, then you go into a state of not caring. All reasoning has left you. You know,
Yeah.
you don't care. I don't care that I'm doing this. All I'm feeling is good, man. This feels so good. But the minute that you come down, and what you have to deal with after that dark place, and a lot of substance abusers will tell you that when you the crash is that bad, that it's deep and it's dark. It's deep and it's dark.
So also if you're speaking about substance, and I understand what you said, like if it's natural and stuff like that, why can't we consume it? However, there's substances that are not natural,
Oh yeah.
that allows the people, that draws the people in, and they obviously using these things, like it's toxic to your body.
It is, yeah.
You know, it's really toxic. So why
The
would we
lab-
still
the lab
why
drugs.
would we still want to consume that?
Yeah.
I do understand what you're saying, like in terms of your herbs and everything. However, you can use it, but in a responsible way.
Responsible way.
Yeah, if it makes sense, because that's
I
what
think that's an
people-
argument in its own.
Yeah, but I agree with the two answers that you guys had, and that's actually what I wanted to lead back to. The effects, the after effects of using, irrespective of what it is,
Yeah.
that is what's going to cause further problems than when the problem, well, if you had the problem to begin with,
Yeah.
Depression, whatever the case is, so now you started using.
Because you're not dealing with the root.
Exactly.
Look at where she's sitting. She's sitting.
Exactly.
She's from the age of 7, right? She started using whatever she was using, and she says drugs saved her life. I will believe that purely from a altering perspective of her chemicals in
Yeah.
her brain,
Yeah.
right, or wherever they're sitting. I'm assuming it's the chemicals in the brain.
Yes.
So the fact that she used it took her to a different place. Did she speak about the part where she stopped using it and she came crashing down? Because she
Nope.
definitely would have been crashing. I know if from I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she ended up in a lot of wellness centers,
did.
right? To help with whatever depression she was going through. But now, where does she sit today? Has she dealt with the root of her problem? Because if she has not dealt with the root of the problem, then she is still at risk of going back to the drugs, back to the wellness centers, and it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
She just goes in cycles because
And
she's
al-
not dealing with the root.
True, and if you go to a wellness center, who knows, you obviously also bleeding on someone else that's trying to escape this drug problem.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't deal with it, so it can be some type of testimony from her side. However,
It's
on
not
someone,
justification.
Yeah, it's not justification
Yeah.
as well.
So,
But now,
Yeah, no.
sorry. Okay, no, carry on.
No, you because I actually wanted to ask Brian to conclude on this because he asked this question, and I want to make sure that we've answered.
No, you
This way.
have. You've more than answered me. You've more than answered me. So while you busy debating on who to speak, I'm going to go on then and jump right to it.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I wanted you to sum your points.
No, go ahead. I'll drop it.
Okay. So I think I liked actually where Blanche took this because she spoke about the post, right? You've gone through the process of taking drugs, substance, and you've stopped, right? That's where healing needs to happen. That's where confrontation needs to happen. You need to confront the actual problem, right? So in order for you not to be susceptible to going back to the very same behavior that you worked so hard to overcome. So here's a very interesting story from my side, and I always say things are interesting. I've had family members, right, who've actually dealt with this problem as well, and I've been very keen in looking at the post, right? Because the post has always been this person, or well, the pre and the process has always been the reason why this person isn't doing well in life is because of these things, right? Which is the substance. Now the substance is not there, and the person is still stuck in one place, except with no substance now. And now the truth is, it's glaring at you because now the substance is not there. Was the substance really the problem in the first place? Bringing it back to my earlier point, the root cause. So while others may get to the bottom of things and fix the root cause, others still get stuck purely because they still believe that whatever happened in between is the reason why they are where they are.
Yeah, I don't
So
think
you can't, until you get to the truth, you can't get to the next point. So while people may drink and abuse, right? Yes, they will go through, they will face the repercussions. If it's jail, it's jail. But if you haven't accepted that the problem was in the alcohol,
Absolutely.
then you will still go even when in sobriety and commit the same act.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. If I look at the life that I speak of, right, of the person, the substance caused the person to be aggressive, to be abusive, to be all these things, right? Even though the person was not necessarily that person, but you can say it almost enhanced that, it brought it out. But the root cause of the person's problem was absolutely, definitely not the drugs. It was deep rooted from the person's own life and own past and pains as a child, going back to childhood, where that behavior was seen in the person's own life, abuse, emotional, physical, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Now, in the person's older life, now the same thing is happening, but it happened through this specific thing. It happened
powerful.
through this specific thing, or at least it was caused. I can say caused by, but the inner issues, right, just was still there. That was the root cause of it all.
But I want to ask another question, right?
Ask.
So it's a lot of the things that we're speaking about is like deep-rooted issues that people would have experienced and haven't dealt with them. But now, what about people who may not have those issues, those deep-rooted issues, and start using
And
substances?
they're just rebellious.
Exactly. And because remember, even though
Caught up in the in crowd.
yeah, because even though those issues do not exist, the feeling that they
Still
get
the
from the
same.
drug is the same.
It's still the same.
And it's something that a lot of people describe that you cannot feel any other way,
Yeah.
because it's like an extreme, exaggerated feeling of joy and
Euphoria.
happiness and euphoria.
Yeah.
Confidence.
All those,
You know,
oh
all
yeah,
those
yeah.
things, like you feel.
Oh yeah.
Well, you feel like you're on top of the world.
Testify.
You can even you got dance moves that you never knew
Exactly.
you could do, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Our buddy over that side there.
So you mean now when the drugs are actually serving you,
You know.
Yes.
they bringing the best out of you?
Well, not necessarily, but in this case, yes, that specific
Like-
points we were speaking about.
Like
but
for instance, like I remember, like out there, like there was an interview a certain former soccer player did about Maradona. Like when Maradona was on his stuff
Yeah.
on the day, he would like do unimaginable things, like
Yeah.
yeah.
attempting to score a corner kick,
Mm.
you know, and like nobody could understand, and you know, like he would do it with astounding effect because he was so good at it, right? But like when you think about it, now that you've actually mentioned it, right, it does in a way enhance or elevate something, right?
Absolutely.
And you can easily say, wow, if I can do amazing things like that when I'm on this thing,
Why stop?
Why stop?
Yeah.
But that's true, and I think, are we can we name drugs? That's okay, right? Well, I think
Yeah,
I've named a
for
couple. So if
sure.
you're talking about Coke, for example, and this is just from people that I know, people that have experienced it, and things just what I know around drugs as well. Because unfortunately, I know quite a bit, not from own use, but because of personal experiences
Testify.
and encounters with people that had to deal with substance abuse. So if you look at Coke, for example, and what Coke does, right? It does exactly that. Coke enhances your abilities.
Yeah.
Like you'll find a lot of people that are technical people, if I can say that, that have got very hard, difficult jobs, and they have to sit in front of maybe computers for
Yeah.
hours
For
and hours and hours
Days, yeah.
and days, and they're
Without
having
sleeping.
to. What do they end up doing?
Yeah.
It just takes a moment with somebody to say, you know what, this is what I do. And that person tries it out. And next thing you know, that person is hooked on coke. Next thing you know, the person is working these incredible hours and you're wondering, how on earth do they do it? I mean, this is insane. You know, working through the night, building incredible stuff, developing amazing, and then only to find that, but eventually it has to come to an end.
Crash. that you
Eventually,
spoke about.
with time,
Yep.
your body cannot handle.
Yeah.
Eventually, your body will come crashing down because you can only handle so much.
Mm-hmm.
Your body can only work so many hours. Eventually, you'll start seeing the effects of the drugs taking place. And
True.
eventually, it starts literally just
And then-
annihilating you.
Yeah, and you start
know.
living on that, and obviously, as you mentioned it,
You implode.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because you literally from inside, I mean,
Because
your
your
liver
system
shot, everything
Yeah.
it goes.
Remember what you said.
The-
You said our systems have an amount of, did you say alcohol? What did you
Yes,
say?
a certain amount
Alcohol
of alcohol.
and our serotonins and
Yeah.
all our chemicals, right? But it's the way we have been created
Mhm.
was to have a certain amount
Yeah.
of each of those in perfect. It's in perfect state.
Harmony, yes.
That's how we were made. We were
Exactly.
created that way. If you believe that, like I
Definitely.
do. Now you want to be clever and go and
Enhance, yeah.
enhance that.
Yeah.
Your body will handle it for a time,
Yeah.
but only for a time
Mhm.
until it will just come crashing down.
yeah.
Wow.
So,
You know,
yeah.
we may be drilling down to the most minuscule details, but I'm actually finding a lot of value in this because I'm learning quite a lot.
Yeah, the cocaine, they call it the rich man's drug,
yeah,
you know, and it makes you do things. I haven't tried it,
yeah.
but
It actually reminds me of this series that I actually watched on Netflix,
Narcos.
House of Cards.
Oh.
No, House of Cards. And there's a guy there called Russo, right? He's a young corporate man. Well, not corporate. I think he's a government official, right? So
Magic.
he's a congressman.
Yeah.
That's what they call them, congressman. So this guy is so young into his professional career that he's growing, right? He's growing. He's going up the ladder. So he gets to levels where it's now difficult. So he then depends on this drug, which is cocaine. And it gets him over and through things. And he delivers when he's on
Absolutely,
this
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
He's
that's
in his A game. But now he just can't walk away. He can't escape because without them, like, he's just a small young boy that is
Exactly.
just clueless about life.
yeah,
exactly.
And he doesn't know how he got there. All he knows is that, like, this is the only time that I get to feel more like a human being or more like a value-add person.
And the question would have to be asked: why? Why does
Only
he feel like
he
that?
can
What is-
answer,
exactly. What
but
is
he
what is
died
the
in the
root of
end.
it? Again, what is the root of that insecurity? Because there must be a very heavy insecurity for you to feel that you need to use drugs in order to enhance yourself. There's a root. There's always a root. There's a stronghold of sorts that's
But
holding
do we
that person
acknowledge
there.
that, like, you could easily, like, looking at it from his perspective, right? You could just easily fall into this thing just like that
Absolutely.
because,
Oh,
look,
yes, of course.
it's producing wonders for you,
Oh, of course,
right?
of course, absolutely.
So you then look at this, you're like, okay, well, if you're enhancing me, we all love enhancements as humans. Let's just be for real, right? Like, we always want to get the next something, the next better something even. So the same could happen here. Maybe this person is looking at themselves and they're like, well, I'm breaking records, man. Like, I
Yeah.
can win the World Cup by myself. Like, I can piece the English national team during World War, and where it seems like it's impossible for Argentina to win, and then I can just win the game, and everyone can look at me like a good damn hero. But here's my fuel.
And ultimately, I think we're honing down on one commonality.
Mm-hmm.
Is
What
that
is it?
substance abuse is no good.
It's no good because there's finality
after
to it. It
bringing
comes to an
such an interesting phenomenon, only to drop it and
Yep.
say it's not good. I was thinking you four.
because it only
This guy.
leads you. Okay, so then you name me one person that has actually has got a good story about substance abuse, except Demi that just made that one comment without
Yeah.
without the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Just oh, it helped me. No, it helped you for a time, and the rest of the time you were a mess, right? So I'm yet to find one person. that can tell me that there was good outcome as a result of drugs. There's not one. And I will never believe that could ever have a good outcome, because it doesn't, even logic tells you it's not possible.
But that
It's
is
just not
such a foregone conclusion, if I may put it that way, because you can't possibly know, right? Yes, we can say like the ending is always bad and all of that, but what if there is someone out there that actually feels like up until their last day, this thing served them? Up until their last day, they never came to the truth of it's not, even though it was the very thing that destroyed them. But what if even through that time, this thing was destroying them? That was the only thing that mattered to them.
And
So
that's-
they never came to their truth.
Well, but that doesn't
But
mean that it
doesn't-
wasn't the
doesn't-
truth.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that it was not good for them, right?
Yeah.
If you're telling me, you just told me now that it destroyed them.
Yeah.
So it tells me that this thing is not good. So whether the person was in euphoria at the time or it was great and everything was peachy, the point is that if that was the thing that destroyed them, it cannot be good.
Yeah.
I will retract
But
on one part,
ultimately,
though.
something is going to destroy us anyways.
Yeah, that's true. The things that we
It
feel
could be
that are,
water.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I will retract on my statement to some extent,
Oh
though.
my God.
You know, I should actually change my name at Homophase and become the retractor,
You should.
because I'm always changing my story. But I know that some substances, right, to an extent, not abuse,
Yeah.
will actually be helpful.
You mean from a medicinal perspective?
Medicinal perspective.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
So you're talking about prescription medication. Let's talk about prescription medication, right? Antidepressants. It can be abused, yes, but it also is something that is, if used right and not abused, it helps people, right? And it really does. I suffered from depression for over 10 years. And I was on...
That long?
Yes. And I was on antidepressants as well for over 10 years. And my testimony is that was my healing. You know, I was delivered from that. But the point that I'm making is, when I was on and I think at one stage I was like on 2 or 3 different antidepressants in a day.
Yeah.
And that was a lot. And it was high doses of it, you know. But the point is that what it did do was it rationalized my brain.
Yes.
So where I was emotional and irrational,
Yes.
it would just rationalize me.
Yeah.
You know, and not abused,
Yeah,
properly taken.
exactly.
Morning, whatever I needed to take,
Yeah.
evening, whatever I had to take, right?
Yeah.
But it rationalized me.
Yeah.
But it also came to a point where I needed to deal with my deep-rooted issues.
True.
Because what was happening is, when I got delivered from that, and I said to myself, this is not something that I want, and the delivery happened, and I was healed from that, I still had to deal with the root.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the depression was gone,
Yeah.
but the emotions and the hurt, pain, all the things that I carried for years and years and years, I still had to face,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Because I had to make a decision that I either face it, right? Or I'm going to end up having to be dependent on drugs for
Yeah.
the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that's something I did not want, because I couldn't cry when I was on it. I had like practically no emotion. I couldn't cry because it would make you so rational you didn't cry. And I'm telling you an experience. So I mean, not to say that, okay, fine, my child would come to me and I promise you would be so rational that you just couldn't cry. But the point is, I had to face my issues. I had to cry. I came to a point where I would sit and I would bawl. I would just cry and cry from whatever it is but I had to face it. You have to face it at some point.
Yeah.
You know.
No, for sure. It does. I think because there's another type of I don't know if it's a prescription type of medicine or something like that, but I know I think a spoon of whiskey, not necessarily Jameson, but some people use a spoon of whiskey, and it apparently for people that have either high blood or low, I don't know,
Sure.
whichever one that has thick blood.
Yes, it thins it
It
out.
thins it
so
out.
it's like it's actually what they're giving the people now for COVID, by the way. It's not the whiskey,
I was
but
about to say
the actual the
which
drug.
cure
I
was that?
can't. I don't know what was it called? Endomectum, something to that effect. It's a blood thinner.
Yes.
It's a blood thinner. So yeah, I mean, I don't know about the whiskey, but that's actually. But you're right in what you're saying. There's certain things that definitely do. Weed, smoking weed. Cancer patients, they
Yeah.
say they should smoke weed to get rid of the pain because the pain is so severe. And some patients have said that that's the thing that actually helped them because not even morphine was good enough to help with the pains.
And also the high doses of morphine over a long period would cause other side effects, whereas maybe the weed would be something else.
And there's people I know that actually do it. They smoke the weed, and even in America, you actually get a script for it. Yeah.
Got my cataracts and all those things that they use.
Again, like I think I think I speak for most people that actually grew in my environment, right? In my early premonitions, I've always had like a fearful approach towards these things because like with us where I come from, right? When we were young and when we used to see a person like smoking cigarettes, weed, and anything that may be cool around now, right? We used to think like, wow, life has hit you so hard, that like there's just no hope for you. You're done, right? That's how we were raised to look at those things like that, with that view that like, yo, like, what are you doing? Like, you headed all the way to hell, So like. But then as you grow, obviously, like, you start to understand, like, why is a person behind a cigarette and all of that, and the impact it actually has in their lives and all of that. But
it's, what, I hear what you're saying, but it's so difficult to really, because what I was saying earlier about sometimes it may not be any underlying issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Just peer pressure or just... It could just be literally peer pressure.
It could be just like
trying to fit in.
It was there.
But if you're trying to fit in again, for me, there's something.
You
understand?
There is something.
There's something that's leading you to it. Curiosity.
Exactly.
Just curiosity. I want to try something. I have heard people saying, I have to try something at least just once.
Yes.
In my life.
Yep.
For some people, that once is the end. I'll try it once.
It's like rides, actually. It's a feeling that you kind of like wanna explore.
But like the adrenaline rush.
Yes.
Exactly.
Adrenaline junkie. You want to try something just once. You go jump off and you go and what's you call those bat suits?
Gliding.
Gliding, but there's another word for it. When they go with the bat suits.
It's
not gliding, it's something else. But anyways,
with abseiling. No, not
abseiling. It'll come to me, doesn't matter. But that's also adrenaline junkies. You jump off and what happens? Just that once. I want to try this.
Jumping?
Yeah.
Not bungee. It's with the bat suit. Not paragliding. Can't think of it now. Don't worry.
Skydiving.
Nope.
No.
Oh my God.
There's a name for it, and it's really going to irritate
Let's live
me.
Me too.
It will come. But the point is that it's that as well. I mean, and the risk is there. It's a risk. For anything, if it's for me, if it's curiosity, there's a risk to it as well. If it's pain and suffering, there's a risk to it as well. There's always going to be a risk when you're going to be going and doing the extreme things. You always and it's again comes back to choice. You have a choice whether you're curious. It comes back to the point where you're standing between here and you're saying, okay, if I do this is my two prong. If I take the drug, that's the risk. If I don't take it,
so
I still have a chance in life.
I think that answers your question, your initial question, Brian. If a person was involved in an accident, and after testing, they find out that this person was intoxicated. And this person now blames it on the booze. Ultimately, it's the choice that they made
100%
to indulge. However, however, the alcohol has impeded some functionalities.
Absolutely.
So, but again, like we said, it's the choice, and you knew these are the side effects.
And the consequences of that is whether you're going to jail or whether you're going to, community service. But there's a consequence to it all. To alcohol, there's losing the consequence of losing a family, of destroying a family. With drugs, same thing, destroying a family, losing a family. Losing your and also your own life in either of those as well. So there's always consequences to all of these things. Even with prescription medication, there's consequences. Even though you can go and become dependent on it, even though you don't want to become dependent. If you need painkillers every single day, next thing you know, Sindel or what's another one, that the Synap Forte, because you had to go for a major operation, because you were in a major accident, and for 6 months you're sitting in hospital, and what happens? What they're feeding you?
All those pain
They-
medication.
What happens when you
Yeah.
go home after 6 months? You're dependent.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're in a wellness center for prescription drugs. Yeah?
Yep.
It happens. It happens.
You were hooked on Lennon's, right?
Oh, my soul.
So that one coming.
And I thought we were not going to speak about that. I told you
What?
that in confidence.
Balsam
build
Copiva.
Bro.
Entrance triples.
You know,
Which
the
one?
build up before he's pulling it, I was like, it's coming,
Yeah,
it's coming.
I saw.
it. I'm like,
I know
wow.
people that I actually know people also that have that struggle. Cough medication is a big one.
Yeah, it is.
know?
Like,
Cough medication is a huge one, and it completely destroys families. Drugs just destroys.
Cough medication.
yeah.
Not
Remember we
not
had a
Bronchoped.
discussion about
What's the other one? Is it not Bronchoped? There's another one.
Borstal.
Stopain.
Oh,
Stopains. All the ones with codeine
Blanche
addiction.
Yeah.
is well versed in this
I
subject.
am. Unfortunately, it's because I had a very close family member that was a drug user,
yeah.
and as a result, it was a direct impact on my life and my lives of my children.
Yeah.
And with all obviously going through the years, research, all of that, you learn a hell of a lot. You know, the person is now 6 years clean, which is amazing.
Awesome.
And but through it all, it was a journey, and it was a difficult journey and you also had to try and get an understanding of it. And that is why it's so important for us to educate our children around
Yes.
these things, because it's real and
That's very important.
it's so real. It's so real, and it's a huge problem in our country. We know that. We know it's a huge problem in our country.
You know, as we are approaching the close, right? You actually brought it to a place where I appreciate, because you say we need to educate
Absolutely.
more about these things, because some of us don't get to
Yeah.
be educated until we experience for ourselves, whereas we could have actually been given a more mature approach
Yeah.
to this thing, so that even when you do encounter it, you have an idea on how to actually deal with the situation.
Yeah. And I also believe that education should also start at home. Because as much as it's great to for your kids to hear it from the experienced or the motivational speakers and that, but to encourage your children at home and let it start at home.
Yes, that's exactly where it should
It
begin,
should start
because
at
charity
home.
begins at home. So if it's missed there, that's
Yeah.
when you're going to go out and learn it somewhere else, and you
Absolutely.
might find yourself learning it in wrong ways.
Yes. Yes.
Because it's lacking back there
Yeah.
where
And
it was supposed to be at a
Yeah.
fundamental level.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part about it, though, is that you'd find that the problem actually started there. So the parents are the substance
Of the
abusers.
substance
So
abusers.
how do you
in
then?
those,
Yeah,
in those
it could
cases,
be
Yeah.
guy.
look in those, but look, and you are 100%
And you're right.
because in many times, okay, Xavier, you
no
go.
finish, no finish.
No, I was just going to say, in many cases,
Yeah.
I mean, Cape Town, I'll use Cape Town as a prime example. I mean, in actual fact, our whole country, we've got the problem. But I know my sister lives in Cape Town, and I was having the conversation with her, where these children are hooked on alcohol and drugs, and it starts in the home because the mother and the father was substance abusers. And now they go to drug rehabilitation centers, right? And they spend the 21 days there. And when they come home, where they're going?
Back to the
Back.
same pattern.
Where they're going?
Yeah,
They're going back to that environment, and they're back there, and it's just a vicious cycle. You have
That's
to
so
remove
deep.
them
Yeah.
completely out of the environment to try at least get hope and fix the problem.
I think one of the next sessions we should be having is maybe trying to, figure out from a personal perspective for people that maybe have experienced abuse.
I've
Not
got
just-
an amazing candidate for you.
Not just not just a casual user like someone we know here, but
That's like, that's like putting your foot in, your toe into the swimming pool and you say,
Exactly.
Let me
so you don't know the feeling of ice cold.
is that your
water.
comeback? Peter.
Hey, let's not get to rap
But-
because
but-
that's gonna take
but
us
look,
another
I
trajectory.
think like the turn that I made, like that was just in time,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and it could have been casual or so, but
It
It
could have
was-
been.
it
It could have
was
been the
timely.
total opposite. Yeah, it could have been the total opposite.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I always look at it as a prong, a fork, right? Where you're saying it. if I go this way, and you use that reasoning.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
use that reasoning to say, if I go this way, this is the outcome. If I go this way, that's the outcome. Some
Yeah.
people don't even get there
True.
because it's too late.
Yeah.
It's just too late.
Okay.
So I think we definitely need to continue this topic because
Absolutely.
like Blanche
Yeah,
It's a
said,
very
gonna
powerful
be
topic.
in
It's a
our-
powerful topic, and it
I
hits
think we need
us in some
3
way or form.
episodes of it, right?
Yeah.
3.
Series 1, Series 2, Series 3.
I think it's a very powerful topic, and
It is.
especially the fact that, you know, each and every single one of us, and maybe it's an assumption, I'm not sure, but I know it's definitely hit me in my life, or at least people close to me in my life,
True.
from all angles,
Yeah.
from drugs and from the alcohol side. My dad was an alcoholic, you know, but luckily at the end, okay, he couldn't drink anymore because he was ill, but and then again on the other side of things, with the drugs as well. So not my dad, but someone else very close to me. So for me, it touches home,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and we'll always see there's someone in our lives that
for
it
sure.
touches.
Like I
or
started
has
off by
touched.
saying that, yeah, it's definitely
Absolutely.
something that's very personal to a lot of us because
Yeah.
it's like the common. It's actually like second nature to some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
you know. And it's even if it's maybe not your immediate relative, but it's like your neighbor,
You know somebody.
Yes.
your
yes. Actually.
the community. I mean, we've seen cops in accidents. And with full uniform and all these things, so it's something that's so common. And
So
yeah,
common.
I think we'll continue the entire evening here. And I see
Yeah.
the sun is actually setting. What a lovely view here.
Yes, it is beautiful.
But we definitely need to continue this conversation
Yeah.
on another few episodes.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is a very interesting topic, and also to get, like you're saying, perspectives from people that have actually experienced it on another level.
Yes.
And I think those people will be able to tell a truth,
Yes.
a real truth,
Yes.
because especially being maybe a substance abuse user, yes, you know, that could definitely bring. Did I say that right?
No.
Doesn't feel like a substance abuser.
Abuser, yes.
Abuser. That's what I meant. You know what I meant. But yeah, I think that will definitely bring an incredible perspective to it.
Was it
But-
paragliding?
No, it's not.
You said paragliding. She said paragliding. I was like,
It's the one with the battered man.
let's just
Yeah.
call it
Going back
Batman.
It's seriously going to bother me. We're going to have to get it on the next show. But yeah, no, it'll be really awesome.
Yeah.
And also, I think I always hold the question as to what's the answer, and is there an answer? Is there an answer to it, to this problem? You know,
Yeah. Good cliffhanger.
and it's a very difficult one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's so easy.
Thanks, Blanche. You've been wonderful.
Thank you, B. Thanks for
It's
having me,
been,
guys. BMX.
You know, an honor to actually host you. Actually, I wanted to say this pre the show, but let me rather say it now.
Please say it now, Brian.
Blanche is officially the first lady on the show.
Oh,
So that's
Yeah.
a record.
sounds presidential.
That's
I
a
tell
record.
you. Ha! This is a moment, guys. It's a moment.
So you can boast, you know, you've got the bragging rights.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes,
you've
sir.
Oh,
made
absolutely.
history.
This is history.
And
Absolutely.
Thanks,
hopefully
Blanche.
many more to come, eh?
Thank you.
Definitely.
It was,
That's a
uh,
surprise.
Yes.
Thanks,
Oh,
Xavier.
okay.
It's been
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you, Blanche.
I'm
All right,
looking forward to
everyone. Cheers. We are out.
Thanks, Brian. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.